Welcome back, everybody, to Corey Hughes' Bloody History. We're going to continue on with this interview of Mrs. Eva Grant. We're about halfway. This episode should take us about half an hour to get through the rest of this. And that'll be it for today. Tomorrow, we're going to hop back into the Jack Ruby stuff. I know it's kind of long and sound like episode 13, but bear with me. Like I said, if I have to suffer through it, you have to suffer through it. Because you haven't noticed, this podcast is really designed more for researchers, right? People who want to absorb this raw data, right? That's what we're doing. We're sifting raw data on this show. So I hope that you all can hang with me. So let us continue. Remember, Eva Grant, Jack Ruby's sister. Jack Ruby goes to Dallas in the 40s to help in run the nightclub run by Miss Grant. Eventually, both Miss Grant and Jack Ruby, along with Ralph Paul, will all go on to own the Carousel Club and the Vegas Club. So one thing I'm still searching for, a direct tip-off from Mr. Ryan Dawson that I got a while back that I haven't been able to sort really, is that in Dallas, at one of these nightclubs, the perpetrators threw a party and everybody was there. That is directly from Mr. Dawson. And I have some potential leads, but things that I remember from years ago. So it's kind of fresh again to me. But anybody out there wants to help out and see if they can't locate some information, reference where the perpetrators might have thrown a celebratory party that all of the guys would have attended. Meaning like Clay Shaw and this and that, because David Ferry was on his way back to Hammond, right? So, all right, let's continue. Mr. Griffin asks, who called the personnel at the Vegas Club to tell them not to come to work? Did you make any calls to your personnel at the Vegas Club? And Miss Eva Grant says, Pauline was calling me all the time and Emma Collins, and I am glad you brought it up. I can't think of every damn thing. Leo Torti is our helper or manager. He does many things, and we owe him some money. It wasn't Ralph Paul. Anyway, it seems to me, the best of my knowledge, he had all of their phone numbers. But it seems to me I myself may have called Leonard sometime late that afternoon. I don't know. Well, Mrs. Grant just let... Oh, and Leonard Wood wanted some money, and I think it was Friday night. I don't want the details. Wait a minute, this is very important, said Miss Grant. All right, said Mr. Griffin. He wanted some money, so I think it seems to me I said Jack was in the house. You'll tell the guys at the garage next door to the Carousel Club, give him your name, and he'll put $10 in an envelope. Now, Jack made this call from the house. This is Friday night. There was a guy there, Larry Crawford, and Andy is supposed to be there. Jack says, you stay there till 9 o'clock, and then you put up a sign that says, closed tonight. Who did he say this to? I don't know. That would have been Saturday night that he said this. Yeah, it could be. Okay, was that the same night that Leonard Wood called? No, it seemed to me Leonard called Friday. I may be wrong. See how she's obfuscating the whole conversation. Leonard called and wanted some money. He was already informed that we were not going to be open. But Leonard called and wanted some money, right? Yes, and Jack. I was on the phone. This much I remember. So you talked to Leonard? Yes. It seems he talked to me. Did you call the Nichols garage? No, I don't even know the number. What garage were you saying you could get some money in an envelope? Next door. Which garage is that? Next door to the Carousel Club? Yeah, next to the Carousel Club. Did you call that garage? No. Did Jack? Yes. Are you sure that it was in connection with Leonard Wood? That's what I heard. Let me ask you this. Could it have happened Saturday night? I don't know if he told Andy. I know Crawford didn't have any money. Put it in an envelope, and you go next door, and there will be $10 for you. Jim, if we haven't already, let's see if we can't find everything on Leonard Wood and Andrew Armstrong. These are guys who worked at the Carousel Club who we really haven't put any time into at all. Let me ask you this. Could it have happened Saturday night? I don't know if he told Andy. I know Crawford didn't have any money. Put it in an envelope, and you go next door, and there will be $10 for you. Well... maybe you're right. Maybe it was Saturday. I know the call came to the house. That's all I know, and I know I talked to Leonard. Did you talk to Leonard about the money in the envelope, or did Jack talk to him about the money in the envelope? I talked to him because Jack was talking to me, and I was relating it on the phone, but I did not call anyone to tell them where to put the envelope. That I do remember. If I did, I don't remember, and I don't want to be quoted that I do remember, and I'm not trying to get out of it. I know there was supposed to be left $10 one of those nights. But you have no recollection of talking with Branch at any time over that weekend. I know I had talked to him in the last month at that time. Mrs. Grant, how long did Jack stay at your house? When did he leave your house on Saturday night? 8 o'clock, 10 to 8 or 10 after 8. Could it have been as late as 11 o'clock? Oh, no. I'll tell you what happened. May I? Yes. He came over and he was excited and goofy. Said he had been to the post office, connected with the morning news. Said the box is full of mail. He said it's some commie. He took out 3 pictures. It's postcard pictures, and in the left-hand corner was a picture of Earl Warren. He told me he had a fight at the bar, and I know the man Solomon at the Turf Bar or Surf. It's on Commerce Street, and he said he nearly took a swing at the guy. And I want you to know, I do not know this person. I don't think I ever talked to him. If I have, I don't remember. It seems to me our accountant was in there, Abe Kleinman. He said there's a little weasel or creep was in there, and he said, I'm leaving Dallas. This is a hell of a place. We got a black mark here. And that's when Jack picked up his hand and said, I'll take a whack at you. He picked up his hand and said something to the effect, I ought to take a whack at you for things like that. You made all your money here, and now you're running out. There's nothing wrong. This is the best city in all the business. And he said he called Gordon. Oh, he called Gordon McClendon. I don't know what went on. Of course, I didn't give a damn, and I went to take a shower. Did he tell you that he'd been to the police station that night before? Jim, pull Gordon McClendon, please. It's ringing a bell, and I can't remember why. It might be a lawyer connected to Lyndon Johnson, if I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am. Did he tell you that he'd been to the police station the night before? No, this is Saturday afternoon, you see. You skipped over Friday night, late after the synagogue. You didn't see him Friday night? He called me. After synagogue, he called you? Yes. Where'd he call you? Said he was in Phil's. In Phil's? Yes. What did he say to you? He said, you don't have the private number of KLIF, do you? I thought he was nuts. You want to know why? I never had any reason to call over there for a private number, and little bit I know they had any. He called and said he wanted to know the number of whom? Of Russ Knight. Why did he ask me the number? I hadn't had Russ Knight's number in the last 2 years because he played a record of Joe Johnson, and I gave it to Russ Knight. But I couldn't think of his last name. I didn't think we were going to find out. To make a long story short, he said he was in Phil's, and I don't know if he was in Phil's on the highway or the one out in the neighborhood. The first thing he wanted to know was how I felt, because I felt pretty bad. And I asked him if he had gone to the synagogue, and he said yes. He said, what are you doing? Truthfully, I was watching and not hearing, but it didn't mean a thing anymore because he said he was going to the station, and this is something I want to get very clear. I didn't give a damn if he went to the radio station or police station. I don't know what idea because he knows somebody everywhere he goes. They know him. I assumed he had friends there. And he asked me if I remembered Russ's name. At that time, I didn't even remember who he was talking about. He said the weird beard. I don't know who he was talking about, and it didn't make any difference to me. This was late. He said after he'd been to the synagogue, it wasn't before 10:30. It could have been around midnight. There was no conception of any more for me that following evening. Now, the next day, he called me sometime in the afternoon. He came over about 3:40, he says. I went to a mailbox. He said that in the middle of the night he took pictures, and he told me a bunch of stories. And in his mind, Bernard Weissman was a Gentile using a Jewish name to implicate the Jews again in all this business. I said he's probably some commie. And while in my home, and I heard this, he called Stanley Kaufman. I don't know what went on the other side, and he's telling him, he says, he's out of town, but I'm going to take this to the FBI. And I asked him during that time, I said, what are you going to do with it? There were a lot of things that happened Friday and Saturday. I'm not smart about politics or the phrases they use always, whether they are right or wrong. He said, I got a scoop for Gordon. And I said, what are you going to do with it? And he said, I'm going to take it Monday, give it to the FBI. And I thought he said it. Impeach Earl Warren. Did he know who Earl Warren was? Oh, yes, he's quite familiar with the position he holds in the United States. Did he know at that time who he was? I'm sure he did. Do you remember him making a telephone call to Russ Knight from your apartment Saturday? Now let me tell you, I know he called him. No, I know he called Stanley. This I swear on my life, he may have. I don't want to be held responsible for saying that he did or didn't. All I ask is if you remember. No, sir, but he made calls. Who do you remember him calling from your apartment on Saturday? I know in this conversation he said, I went through all the telephone book and I went along Oak Cliff Avenue and I even went to the city directory. Now, whether I had said something to him earlier or then or what, but I figured that would be the police. It is in the back of my mind I said something, whether I was telling him to go or he told me he had been, I don't know. Who was he telling about this? He was telling, mostly he talked, I would say 15 minutes anyway, to Stanley Kaufman, his attorney here in town. About the city directory? I don't know about that, but I know we talked about it. He said he was looking for Bernard Weissman. Where? You messed up a lot of stuff that went on Friday. Did it take place in your presence? This conversation was made in front of me, and this is what I heard. Have you missed anything on Friday that took place in your presence? Well, Betty Guchin came with the newspaper on Friday morning at 10 a.m. We covered that. Even the second time after the conversation, and while he wasn't there, I read the darn thing, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm not smart enough to detect if there's any animosity. It's like we sent wheat to Russia. Did he talk? He asked me, did I see the ad? And I said, yes, but I didn't like it. I looked at it, and since he has already been fed up and fouled up in the newspaper office when he came Friday, he brought me back the morning paper and the evening paper with "The President is Dead," and he said, look at it. And he said different things. Any other city would be honored to have him visit them, of all the cities in the United States, to have the president come here. Let's get back to Saturday with this understanding that if there's anything that took place in your presence or that Jack said to you on Saturday that we haven't covered already, we're finished with Friday. When you read this transcript again, if there's anything that comes to your mind in reading the transcript, write it out and send it to us. But let's go on Saturday. Let's stay on Saturday. Now, the telephone calls, you said he called Stanley Kaufman. That's right. What did he talk to Stanley Kaufman about that you heard? He went to the post office and he was still talking about these pictures. And he said he couldn't find a name like that anywhere. He implied that he was not a Jewish man that did it. He was a Gentile and he just wanted to get the Jews in trouble. He implied that. Well, yes. Did he actually say that? No, I could tell from the way he worded. You don't have to say a lot of things if you know a person as well as I know Jack. Did you arrive at that conclusion on Saturday when you were talking to him, or is that some conclusion this was Friday? Well, no, I got to thinking that pause. I hadn't said this to him. It could be a Gentile with a name just like that and didn't think of anything. Why did you suggest to him that it might be a Gentile? I said in words that it might be a Gentile with a name like that. What made you think that? Because I know a lot of Swedes like the name Swanson or Peter. I know a lot of Jewish people named Miller. What gave you the idea that Weissman ad was put in by a Gentile? Nothing any more than I was just trying to cover, not cover up. Maybe in my subconscious mind, I didn't want a Jew to be connected with it either. Did Jack suggest that to you, or you to him first? This is it. We both feel we don't have the feeling that anyone would be such a lowlife. Do you understand my question? I don't remember which one said it. We felt that way. We talked about it. I could have said a lot of things. Mrs. Grant, what do you remember saying to Jack about the Weissman ad on Saturday afternoon or evening? I asked him, I said, did you look in the city directory? I probably indicated stuff like he's a commie, and by Saturday he already changed. I figured I talked about Birchers. Mrs. Grant, on Friday when you talked with Jack about the Weissman ad, did you suggest to him, or was there any talk that Weissman might not be a Jew? He was a commie straight with Oswald. On Friday when you talked with him about this ad, is that right? I mean, he implied little things like that. After all, it's my brother. We have a right to have private conversations. I see. Maybe even said Jew to rile everybody up. When you first talked with Mr. Burleson about this, did you tell him what you have just been telling us here? I don't know. If he remembers, he's doing better than I am doing. If he thinks I lied or I'm not telling the truth, I don't know. Did I leave something out? Not that I know of. Saturday afternoon, he brought me 3 pictures, and he is reading them, and this is on the paper, impeach Earl Warren, and he thinks this is commies and Birchers. That's what it all came. That's when it all came to remember about the Birchers, and I know very little about them, and I know less about communism. Did he mention any literature by H.L. Hunt? He had that literature for some time. I think he had that literature a couple of weeks. Did he talk to you about that literature after? Yes, he hated him. Hated whom? H.L. Hunt. When did he mention this to you? He don't have to say he hates. I know my brother. If a man looks at his wife, he don't have to tell me. He implies he hates her. This was something. He went someplace and he told me something. I think we read this in the paper. I'll be honest about it. That at the World's Fair, they don't want them in. I don't know where I got the information. Do you remember any radio script he got from H.L. Hunt? Seems to me the day I was in his car, he took me from the hospital, and I think he had it in there before even I went to the hospital. I don't know. It seems to me like in October or September, I seen something that my brother didn't like in Lifeline. I can't use words for this machine. Can you remember any other phone calls that he made on Saturday from your apartment? He made a lot of them. He was there until almost 8 o'clock or 10 after 8. He did not leave before 7:30. And he was out of my house before 8:30, but he spent a good 4 hours Saturday, and he slept a little bit. He said he hadn't slept for 2 or 3 nights. Did he call Tom O'Grady from your apartment? He may have. Do you remember that? In the back of my mind, he may have, yes. Now, I don't know. You know what? I'm going to tell you something. I wasn't too, what do you do to call when you can't recall your thoughts? It was 2 terrible days. It was the 2 worst days for me, just like a lot of people, because I was taking pills. Amnesia? No, it was more like I was in a trance. I was sick physically. I was taking these pills. The shock of the president knocked me off gear. I thought the world was coming to an end. My brother sitting there like a broken man crying. All this went until days for me. Did Jack call Ralph Paul from your apartment? Yes, I think he did. May have he even called Friday. I don't know if it is on my bill. Did you call Ralph? No, I think I called him that following Sunday, the 24th. But you didn't call him on Friday or Saturday. No, I had very little business with Ralph Paul. Not that I remember. I would have to be exceptionally good reason, and I don't know what reason it would have been. Did Jack receive a telephone call from Little Lynn while he was at your apartment? Not that I recall. The phone did ring, but I couldn't say who it was. But I remember the Friday night because Andy called. Do you recall the telephone call from somebody asking Jack for some money on Saturday night? I remember I spoke with Leonard Wood about he wanted some money. Either I picked up the phone, I thought it was Friday night. Now, if it wasn't, I'm quite mixed up. In fact, until recently, I forgot about giving him $10 until Sunday morning, and this only came to me recently. Ms. Grant, on Saturday night from your apartment, did Jack call a man named Lawrence Myers? No. Do you know Lawrence Myers? Who's he? I would like to know who he is. Someone else asked me. He's a friend of Jack's from Chicago. I don't know who he was. Was he in Chicago, the fellow? No, he was in Dallas. I never heard the name, believe me, so help me God. I don't even know who you're talking about. I know Lenny Patrick. I know who he is, and I haven't seen him in 35 years. We are very well acquainted. Did Jack, who's this guy, a racketeer? I want to know. I want to find out. He's not a racketeer. He's a perfectly legitimate man, but a friend of Jack's. Who is he? I want to find out. He sells sports goods. That's more like my brother's friends. I once had lunch with the judge. That doesn't make me a judge. You don't think I'm accusing you of anything? No, I like you, but I want you to try to understand that we're not children. If we were 20 years of age, we only have many acquaintances. Jack and I traveled a great deal, and we met many people. Jack has a vast amount of knowledge of people's names. That's more than I have. Let me say this, that in the testimony we've been taking today, I don't think there's been any suggestion of any accusations. I've simply been trying to find out from you what you did. And there's a footnote. U.S. Attorney H. Barefoot Sanders enters the room. And Mrs. Grant says to Mr. Sanders, if you hear hollering, it's me. You want to shut me down and not let me explain this. When you run a business like we have, people come up and you don't go up and ask what business you're in. Look, you don't even have to go into this as far as I'm concerned, because all I want to find out is what you did Saturday night and Sunday, and I only mentioned Mr. Myers' name not to suggest he was a racketeer or anything. I would like to know who he was. Well, I've told you. I appreciate it, and I want to thank you because someone else asked me. We will give Mr. Burleson his address. In fact, I think Mr. Burleson already has his address. How come you don't ask Harry Rosenthal why he goes to Las Vegas every weekend? I want to know why you don't ask him. Let's stay on the track. If he came to visit me, would it make me a gambler? I wish I had money to gamble. I like to go to the racetracks. No, you don't either. Mrs. Grant, when Jack left your apartment on Saturday night, where did he say he was going? Yes. Where was he going? When I first told the story, I'd forgotten about his saying he was going to the club, something about to talk to Andy or to go to the garage about the money. I had to do with leaving money again. But this is what he had in mind. Let's get back on this now. He didn't eat at my house this Saturday. In fact, he spent so much time, he drank all the juice. How did this money thing that he had to take care of downtown, how did that come up? Well, you see, you've confused me. I don't know if that was Leonard Wood's deal or anybody else, but it seems to me, in the back of my mind, there was someone else that needed money, and I don't know who to put the finger on that asked, because with all that help, and it was something to do with this club, at least that is what it seems to me. In one of those conversations, either Friday or Saturday, he said, you stay there till 9 o'clock on Saturday night. It could not have been Larry, because when Jack came to the afternoon, he told me, guess what, Larry? He left me a note and took some money. He's mad at me. And I said, why? He said, because I didn't leave him money or something. I didn't buy dog food. He said, well, don't you take money or something? I heard this. This is what Jack told me, something about dog food. And I said, why did he leave? He said, well, after we took the pictures, I told him I'm going to be up. I feel good. I'm going to go there. And Jack talked like that, and I do too. But instead of that, he went home because this is the morning of the 23rd after he was up all night. Well, I don't know if he slept because he didn't get home until 2:33 or 4. He called Larry, got him out of bed, and they went to take the pictures and took these pictures sometime. This is something you didn't see. No, they told you. Jack told you all this. George told me. When did George tell you that? Well, I don't know when I saw him. It was the next time, but I don't remember when I saw him. I didn't see him that Saturday that I remember. This was sometime after Oswald was shot? Oh, yes. Did Jack tell you about this? The pictures I saw myself, 3 pictures. All right. Now, when Jack came up to your apartment Saturday afternoon, what did you spend most of your time doing? Talking or watching television or what? No, he didn't watch it at all. I know he didn't. In fact, he fell asleep for over an hour on my bed. This is the first time he's ever done that. He noticed I got a new spread a month and a half ago, and it cost $20.50 a piece. I have twin beds. He didn't even pull the top down, and there was a big oil spot from his head, and I was going to give him hell on Sunday. How long after he showed up at your place did he go in there and rest? He came about 20 to 4. He was there about 8 or 10 or after 8. It seemed to me there were many hours. He talked and called Stanley and took the phone in the bedroom. He laid down and then got up, and when he left, he told me he was going home to eat. I think he called George. Now, Mrs. Grant, let's see. Maybe we can pinpoint when he was sleeping there. How long after he woke up did he leave your apartment, and how much time elapsed? Well, I wouldn't say maybe an hour, maybe 40 minutes. How long had been in your apartment before he went to sleep? A few hours. Then he didn't sleep very long. No. How long would you say he slept? I don't know. I think he actually fell asleep. I hadn't slept well for a couple of nights, hadn't slept all Friday night, and neither did I sleep Saturday during the night or either Thursday night. That was the reason I would take one of these pills. Now, Mrs. Grant, if the other evidence showed that Jack arrived at the Carousel Club about 11 o'clock, the date? Listen to me. I don't know nothing about that. Now listen, can I catch you up a little before that? Let him ask questions and then you can fill it in. Let me finish. If the evidence showed that he left and arrived down at the Carousel Club about 11 o'clock at night and that he received a telephone call about money, could be. About 10:30 at night, not from my place. Couldn't have been at your place. No. Will you listen to me? Don't forget, Friday night we had all the delicatessen stuff. This is Saturday. I did not make one thing. He asked me what I had got to eat. I said, the same thing you brought yesterday. That didn't satisfy him. This is in the back of my mind. He may have called to his apartment and George was there because he made calls. He wasn't home. I don't know where he was for 2 or 2.5 hours. He was home, it seems to me, after 10. I would say 10:15. He said he took a shower and was getting dressed and he made liver and onions or liver. George had bought liver. Whether it was prepared before or whether it was raw and Jack had to fry it, I don't know. How'd you find out about that? He was telling me, and he said, asked me what I ate. I said, I don't feel like eating. I ate enough for 6 people, just little bites. And I said, did you eat? And he said, yes, George brought a lot of stuff. George is a Jewish housewife in my estimation. Jack called me from his house. He said he had liver, and he was very depressed, and he was very droopy depressed. We get high and low, which you probably already know. He was so low. He said, go see somebody. And I said, I don't want to. And he said, you're depressed. Go see somebody. Well, I don't know. I mean, go see somebody that you like. Now, I didn't know this then. I didn't know this Sunday. I found out maybe a week later or two. I don't know. I found out when he went to Bob Norton of the Pago Pago Club. How do you fix the time in which you told him to go see somebody? After 10 o'clock. How do you arrive at that? Well, I knew it. I mean, he was watching television. Was it getting late in the evening and he had been gone a couple of hours? It wasn't after 11 o'clock, and it wasn't after 12 o'clock. Could it have been as early as 9 o'clock? You know, this sounds crazy. I think he went home and slept a little bit too. I think that's what he told me. I may be wrong, but it seems to me that he could have slept a little bit. And he's a very slow dresser. Anybody that probably can get dressed like in the army, how they ever tolerated him, because it's a hustle bustle, eager beaver. It could take him 3 hours to shave and dress the way he wants to look, because he stops and makes a phone call, and he was very slow. Did Jack talk to you about Breck Wall that Saturday? I think he made a call to him Friday, was it? Saturday. Did he talk to you about Wall? Yes. What did he say to you about Wall? Seems to me he's out of town. Can I give you some testimony? It might shed some light that might help her. Let me explain this. In all sincerity, I'm trying to remember. I have a good memory. But I have been sick and I have been taking pills, and this is the thing that bothers me. Let me say this on the record. I'm sure the commission knows Breck Wall is a client of mine who was running a show at the Adolphus Hotel in Dallas, and he closed down because of the assassination, and he went to Galveston to visit his parents, and Jack called Breck Wall at night on Saturday night. All right, so finally, something that I can totally debunk here. This I need to do a little bit more finalization on, but this is what I'm pretty sure happened, because we all know that Jack Ruby ended up having to go to Galveston. He took Andrew Jerome Blackman back to his boat. He stopped in at the Alamo Motel, where he was seen with a blonde woman, right? Or at least there was a blonde woman at that hotel room who was most likely Candy Bar. And so Breck Wall, when he actually, I'm going to find the testimony of Breck Wall. We'll do that tomorrow. And Breck Wall's he's full of shit, okay? Like, he gave so much contradictory information about, so allegedly what happened is he goes down and he stays with Thomas McKenna, whose real name is fucking Robert McEwen, and we know that because it's obvious, right? He goes and stays with Robert McEwen, a.k.a. Thomas McKenna, and also there was a slip-up in the Warren Commission accidentally spilt the beans that Thomas McKenna was Robert McEwen, okay? So maybe you can find that document somewhere, but I've seen it, and it's real. Robert McEwen being a fucking drinking buddy of Fidel Castro, right? Who was one of the guys who was involved in helping Jack Ruby try to sell Castro a bunch of Jeeps, right? In the years leading up to that. So, but the problem is that Breck Wall never actually went on that trip. Jack Ruby went on that trip. So Jack Ruby was there, and Breck Wall, or somebody made the call from Breck Wall's hotel room. Right? So the call, if I'm not mistaken, is made from Breck Wall's hotel room to Thomas McKenna's house, a.k.a. Robert McEwen, right? So it's a swapperoo. It's another alibi phone call. I do need to spend some time and work it out. Maybe we'll do that as we go through the next interview of Breck Wall. But I'm 100% confident that was what happened. So Jack Ruby was down there, and Breck Wall was still up in Dallas at the Adolphus Hotel, where he put on his gay little show Follies. I'm pretty sure Breck Wall is one of the 3 gay boys who was associated with Larry Rost, who was the trainer at the Winterland Ice Arena. Another little tidbit there. What else? So yeah, we'll cover that tomorrow, and I will talk about that in much more in depth. But yeah, another alibi phone call because Jack Ruby was at fucking Thomas McKenna's house, not the other way around. So All right. And Jack called Brett Wall at night on Saturday night. She says, that I remember in Galveston. Burleson says, and was very, very upset. When you say late, what time did he call? Burleson says, between 9 and 11. As best I recall, because he called me the next day when Jack was charged and asked me to go help Jack and told me that he talked to him the night before and he was very upset. He just seen it on television and wanted to see if I could go help him in any way. Seems to me that he told me I know the word Galveston and this is Mrs. Grant, didn't know anybody in Galveston, and he said he talked to Breck, and don't ask me what he said. I don't know. I don't know if he was at the club or at home. Where was he? And Mr. Griffin says, Mrs. Grant, after you left your apartment and called you from his own apartment, and you told him, I want to tell you I didn't hear from him for at least the last 2 hours, it seems to me, from the time he left my home Saturday night, at least 2 hours. You said when he left your house, he said he had to go downtown and give somebody some money. You said a couple of hours later he called you and you told him to go see somebody. Yes. All right, are you sure that when he left your house he said he was going to go give somebody a call or give somebody some money? Or did he tell you that in the telephone call that he made a couple hours later? Seems to me that he said something about money. Was that in the telephone call or when he got to your house? Seems to me when he left the house while he was at the house. After the telephone call that he made in which you told him to go see somebody, did he call you again? Wait a minute, let's get this right. After what? After the telephone call. After 10 o'clock. Yes. Sure, he called me again. When did he call you again? Oh, it was almost 1:45 or 1:20. Where was he? I thought he was home. What did he say? He asked me how I was. What did you say? Well, I was reading Reader's Digest, and he asked me if I was watching television. I said, yes, I was watching television, but I wasn't listening. He said, what else? What was happening? I said, nothing, and said, I think they signed off, and they got terrible. They got terrible music on. What I meant to say was very depressing music. I said it was from 11, Only Memorial, and it was some singing. I think I go on to watching him. No, I don't say I was watching, but they turned it off. I think all the stations went off early. When he called you this time, he did say anything to you other than to ask you how you were? I can't remember all the conversation. He asked me if I called home or something. Did I call somebody? It seems to me, but I'm confused on Friday and Saturday. Are you sure that this telephone call we're now talking about occurred at 1 o'clock on Sunday morning, or could it have been 1 o'clock Saturday morning? No. He could have called me both nights at that time. The last time I talked to my brother was to him shooting Oswald was close to 1 o'clock, more like 20 to 1 or 1:15. It was after 12:30. How do you place the time? Well, because he says to me, what are you doing? I have a habit, and this is a watch right here says this takes this long on a table, and I watch television when it's on. How long did that telephone call last? Not too long. Did Jack say to you that he was at his apartment? No, but it was very quiet. I felt he was there alone. Did he indicate to you he was going anyplace after that telephone call? No. He could have been at both. I don't know. Did he indicate anything about the Weinsteins to you in that telephone call? No. Did he mention the Weinsteins to you Saturday night? No. Friday we talked about it. We talked about the clubs, and I am sure in the back of his mind he referred to the, branch office club. Did he say anything about doing something to Oswald? Never ever mentioned his name. Never even watched Only the One Time Friday. He took a look and said something. What a creep. He didn't watch television from my house. Now, I don't mean he didn't watch television. If he did, it wasn't that it would have. Where he sits, he don't face it. I sit opposite it. Then the next thing you heard from him about Jack was that he had shot Oswald. May I go back to you and tell you all the things that happened Sunday morning? Is that what you want to know? I'm sure I do. Did you remain at your apartment all Sunday morning? Did you remain at your apartment all Sunday morning? Never left it until the time I walked out with Pauline and Bill Rainbow. No, I didn't leave. No, I stayed there. Pauline at that New York reporter. Jim Underwood? Ike Pappas? No, I think his name sounded something like Denson or Jensen. I think he said New York Times. at the time you were watching television when your brother shot Lee Oswald. Let me explain this. I got up early in the morning. I took a pill. I freshened myself up. I didn't get dressed into my clothes. I went back into bed. Then I decided to get out. I turned on television, and all I saw is important people passing the coffin on television, people from all over the world. I started to put on water, and I didn't feel good. And I was listening, and all of a sudden they changed the scene themselves, and I saw a guy with, seemed to me, 3/4 length coat with glasses and a lot of hair, and he's talking and he's mumbling. Tom? I don't know who it is to this very day. I don't know who they were talking about. This was on the occasion. This was after the 11 o'clock show. But this was how you learned that Jack had shot Oswald. Let me explain this. My phone rang, and I heard this guy say there may be twisting the words around, but there's been a little excitement here, and he stops and says, I think they shot Oswald. And my phone rang. Leonard Wood was talking to me on the phone. This is all in whether he was listening to another station or something. I don't know. And he's talking to me, and what do you think I said to him? I said, Leonard, you don't call me every day. Now, don't tell me, how do you feel, Mrs. Grant? Fine. Do you know where Jack's at? And I said, no. Mr. Griffin then says, had Leonard tried to call Jack in the morning? Now, don't ask me that. I want to tell you I don't know what he tried to do. Now, we talked about different things, and then he was almost gone and hanging on and said, are you watching television, Mrs. Grant? And I said, yes. I was watching but wasn't listening. How soon did you learn that Oswald had been shot? I want to tell you how many phone calls I got. This one for the books. I'm talking to him, and I finally said, now listen, Leonard. I figured he was trying to find Jack to get some money. I said, now listen, Leonard. You know these things have been pretty rough in the club, and you got $10 either last night or the night before. And he said, I don't want any money. And he said, are you all right? And I said, yes. See, I never get to talk to Leonard. I wish he would come to see me. I don't know whether he knew of something or what, and he was hemming and hawing over the phone. I didn't get a chance to put the phone down a second. Not a second, the phone rang, and Andy said, Mrs. Grant, this is Andy. Where's Jack? Is Jack with you? And I said, no, he's at home. And he said, no, he's not at home. I said, listen, you know when Jack takes a shower, ring him again. And he said, I rang him 4 or 5 times. I said, hang up and call again. And he said, Mrs. Grant, I rang. I said, if he's in the bathroom, he's going to hear the phone. And we talked, and I don't know if he knew. I mean, I found out he knew. I asked him about 2 weeks later or a week later, and he knew about it. Wait a minute, I'm not through. The phone rang again, and I want to tell you, you may know I put water on for boiling. Madeline Blaney was on the phone. By this time, I got to the television. I only had to walk from there to a few feet. I had it on the wall, maybe 9 feet, and I turned it up, and this is what I heard. John Logan, no Jack Luby. I wanted to go back in the kitchen with the phone, and I wasn't talking too much, and I turned it down. Madeline's on the phone and says, how do you feel? And I said, fine. I'm talking to her, and I turned the damn thing down. And I saw this is a rerun. And if it is, I don't know. I actually saw what the other people saw. This is my conversation with Madeline, why they never went to see her. I will never know. I'm watching it. Don't forget, I said, you get the name, repeat two names. But I turned it down because it was too close to the phone. I wasn't going to go out of the living room, and I wasn't going to eliminate one or the other. I wanted to be sure. I know both things are going on. I said, how are you? And she said, okay, who's there? And I said, who would be there? And I'm wearing my muumuu my daughter-in-law sent me for Christmas, and I wouldn't dare let anyone in. I'm shooting my mouth off about Joe Johnson. I have a great admiration. He's a colored boy, been with us 8 years. He told me we had a fight, not 130 fights, but a fight. I said, Madeline, I want to apologize for sort of neglecting you because when I was in the hospital, Madeline and Joe came walking in the very same time to visit me in the hospital. Here, both walking in. Madeline and I understood, but this is the guy. He wanted as a band leader to come back. I said, Joe, take a seat. I said, Madeline, I hope you don't resent me for talking to Joe about his children. And we talked about his children, and he kept on talking. She said, Eva, I don't want to be the one to tell you this. Do you know who did the shooting? And I said, no. She said, Jack shot Oswald. That was the end of me. Now, I never hung up. I never turned my television off. I remember these people, Jim Holland and his wife Margot, and a fellow who, these people lived next door. Jim Reed, the manager, had gone away for the day, but I didn't know it. As a rule, she would have heard me. I didn't know for 2 days that she wasn't there Sunday. I ran to the door, and I don't know what happened. This I tell you, in the first place, no one ever told me. I thought they killed my brother too. All I know is I was out of my mind. I ran to the door, and I don't usually dress in this in my muumuu to meet strangers, but there was such a knock on the door. There were minutes I can't recall. I will not tell you any stories. I don't know exactly before I knew it all. All I knew was there were photographers there, and your best guess is to ask Pauline what took place if you get in touch with her. I'd go into the bathroom. I want to change, but instead I put a robe on. This is what I think I'd done. Whoever talked to me, I thought they said they killed Jack too. I don't know what took place. Now, Mrs. Grant, what you're telling us now can't affect your brother's case in any way. I'm not trying to hide anything. I realize, but I want to tell you, I realize you want to tell us, but and I'm going to have to cut you off. I want to explain to you that what you could tell us from here on, since it is all after the fact, is not material relevant to the shooting of Oswald. So we are at the end, really. Let me ask you this. Did you talk to your brother at all about the president's expected visit to Dallas before President Kennedy arrived? Mrs. Grant says, during that week on Monday, now it may have been Tuesday, Dallas Morning News had a picture of a desk similar to this, looked like two doors. Little John was there, and the president was there, and the vice president was looking at him, and my brother had said, this guy don't act like a president. He's just like a regular father. This is what my brother enjoyed. Did your brother talk to you about going to see the parade? No. Let me ask you if we can do this. You brought a number of items here that you would like us to look at. I don't want to take them from you without making a record. I want to sign that paper for you. That's what I want to do. I think you're being very fair, and I'm going to tell you this. There are a lot of things that concern these things, and they're upsetting me because I can't tell them, and I can't leave them here. I know your time is limited. Let me try to reassure you this way. I think I'm going to be back in Dallas probably once more, and I know you probably would like to talk to us again, and we will make arrangements to talk to you at that time. Mrs. Grant, well, if you don't talk to me, I'm going to go to Washington, and I'm going to do some pretty stiff talking. We want to hear everything you have to say. I wonder if you would want to send us the particular things you want to talk about so we can be prepared to handle them, perhaps in a relatively orderly fashion. No, I don't want that in any mail. You don't want us to send you anything? Not through the mail. This is the stuff. Take it with you. That is the post office package that Jack picked up. This is the material you had printed? Yes. Okay. And that is the end of Miss Grant's testimony. So what can we determine from the testimony of Miss Grant? That she's not cooperative, right? Not cooperative. And why wouldn't she be cooperative? Well, we can say with certainty that Jack Ruby went down to Galveston on that Saturday, and he wasn't in Dallas at all. So for her to say that he's calling and that he's there and stuff is bullshit, because if anybody came by late Friday night or Saturday, it was Samuel, not Jack. Couldn't have been Jack. So, but that's going to do it for today, guys. Hey, if you guys want to get a free copy of my book signed, you can sign up for my Substack. It's bloodyhistory.substack.com. Spend the $50, pay for the year, and I will mail you a signed copy of my book for free. All right? So that's the deal of a lifetime. Tonight's Thursday. I'll be back on another episode of Beyond the Cube with Mr. X Cube 420 on Rumble and YouTube. And let me see. Yeah, that's it. We're going to be back tomorrow with the testimony of Breck Wall and maybe more. So that's going to do it for me, guys. I'll see you then.